all of us consider ourselves abolitionists. Like, we don't think that, like,
everybody except for the January 6th
100%.
and police officers should be in jail.
Yes, right. Exactly. But at the same time, again, like that actually makes good, as crazy as it sounds, that actually makes good political. If you're gonna pardon celebrities, he's probably the biggest one that could be affected by that. You know what I'm saying?
And not to do another parallel, we still have the tape of Diddy whooping Cassie's behind, right?
We do, yeah.
So even if you're like, okay, this is domestic violence, it probably should not be human trafficking. Right. You still have like the video, right? And so I think Trump was looking at, okay, all this type of stuff, easier person.
And Trump keeps a domestic abuser like around him, like none of that is disqualifying. None of that behavior is disqualifying. It's also interesting because it said Trump is considering pardoning the men who plotted to kidnap the governor of Michigan. And that is so outrageous.
He said they got drunk and said a couple stupid things, and that's not really grounds for them to be prosecuted. And they got weapons of mass destruction.
This is my thought process is we are now understanding.
He said it was a railroad job. Okay.
We are now understanding the case for abolition and understanding that prison is not always going to be the place where people who do bad things end up.
Right.
And so what does it mean to hold people accountable? What does it mean to have people unlearn their wrong behavior and make amends for their behavior? How do we actually support survivors and victims and people who have been like impacted? And now was the time to have these conversations, because maybe it was you who tweeted it out or posted it and was like,
the the Republicans have been doing having abolitionist talking points for decades. Like they have been they've been effectively cutting every single governmental process, abolishing the Department of Education, abolishing healthcare, abolishing prison,
abolishing prison.
Well, abolishing prison sentences for their own constituents.
Obviously, you pardon January 6th.
Abolish
if you ride his genitalia hard enough, you might get a pardon.
You might, right? Pause. That was crazy. But if you you all right? And also they've effectively abolished police. In a lot of these suburban and affluent communities, you have no policing in their presence at all.
Well, I mean, I think Trump didn't do that. The Republicans didn't do that. You know, that's wealthy people, you know, that tend normally have like private security and different things like that.
Right.
So,
yes. I mean, that's still, and most of those people vote Republican. I think that's a safe assumption.
Yeah, but I wouldn't consider that an abolitionist thing, because
I would, because they've taken the government out of it. They've taken policing out of it in the sense that you don't call a police office. They have someone that handles their shit for them.
But they also do call the police. You know what I'm saying? Like if they were to be robbed, or if they would be, they do call the police. Yeah.
But again, they have largely, in part, distanced themselves from the practice of governmental agency.
I disagree with that on the police, because these Republicans will be the main ones that want to increase. I mean, here's Trump. He just gave how many extra $50 billion to ICE, and we're seeing ICE going around masked up, like grabbing up everybody.
Yeah, that's a federal police. I'm talking.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's still policing. That's still incarceration.
It's still policing and it's still incarceration, but it's targeted at a specific group of people.
Of course, it's not targeted at white people.
It's not targeted at white people, and that's the sense I'm talking about. But even in these affluent and gated communities, you don't have police presence there. ICE
you don't need police presence.
You
there,
don't, right? So cases, again, that is a sense of abolition. They've created a safety. I
wouldn't call that abolition.
What would you call it then?
I would say that, like, again, like when you're rich and wealthy and you're able to afford your own private security if necessary, that's not an abolitionist. That's not somebody saying, like, abolitionists would be meaning like these same people saying you all should have private security too. You know what I'm saying? That would be like abolitionists saying, like, okay, because I can afford this private folks and private people around me, this is what I think we should do instead of policing. They're not saying that. Republicans are oftentimes saying increase police, more cops. Remember when we were saying defund the police, it's like, oh, that's crazy. We need more police. So again, like, I see what you're saying by their practice, but not by the words that come out of their mouth. So because if you had a conversation with them and you said, hey, rich white white person with private security, do you think we shouldn't have jails or prisons or police? They'd be like, hell no. We need all of that.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying?
I think I was more so ascribing that towards, again, the practice of only applying it to people of the global majority.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Keeping themselves shielded from 100%. Those.
But with your, like, Democrats do often, like, again, we've had, we whether it was Joe Biden or Bill Clinton with 3 strikes, like, Democrats have ran on legislation or done
heavy
things that
policing, heavy mass incarceration.
Heavy police. I mean, again, like, a lot of times you have these prosecutors getting to these statuses. You know, Kamala, I think Governor Shapiro was a prosecutor as well.
Yeah,
that kind of have that mentality. So I agree with that.
Yeah, you know Republicans have been kind of like leading it, and even like Miracle had said this a few times, that this is a time for the Republicans of all parties to really have a conversation about honest criminal justice reform, because so many of their people are being brought up on charges. Look at George Santos. Like, how do we create?
But they gave Santos time though.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, what again? Miracle has just said, prison isn't the place for everybody and where people go who are doing wrong.
Right.
So this is the time where you can really platform criminal justice reform and have a holistic approach and overhaul of it. Are they going to do it? Probably
Right. Not because they, again, like, it's like what's good for me isn't good for you.
Right.
And a lot of times, like, what's good for, again, these rich, again, it's the same thing with the ketamine. Elon can use ketamine, poor people can't. Right. So these rich people, oftentimes, don't matter what they do. I mean, again, we have a sitting president that has 34 felonies that didn't face any consequences because of that.
None.
So if me and you got 34 felonies, it would upend our whole entire life.
Could we even if we make it around with 34 felonies?
Again, even if we didn't get a prison sentence, we couldn't travel outside of the country. It's mad stuff that we wouldn't have access to because we have 34 felonies. We wouldn't have access to certain jobs, certain opportunities.